All right, so the 16th century samurai Musashi Miyamoto wrote in the Book of Five Rings, the true value of sword fighting cannot be seen within the confines of sword fighting itself. And I think that's really important, and I think that's kind of what we do here. It's like, obviously, sword fighting isn't really a practical skill these days. You know, we're not going around getting in sword fights, well, shouldn't be. And you know, even if we are confronted with a rare circumstance with actual violence, then using a sword is not really a viable option these days. So it's like, well, why even do this? Part of the reason we're here is because we all love sword fighting. The other part is because we all love Star Wars. The cool thing with Star Wars is that it's not just a story. It's something that really hits us in the heart. You know, like there's a lot of depth to it, and it always is relevant. You know, like, and it's based off stories that are way older. You know, older than written language, like oral traditions and stuff. Tell a story. It's the same kind of story, the hero's journey. So it's like, there's value in Star Wars, and we can get that value from this fiction, the truth that's in the fiction, and apply it to our real world experiences and our lives. And I think the same is true of sword fighting. So kind of what we do is analogous to the Jedi's relationship with a lightsaber. So it kind of seems like a contradiction at face value. You know, a Jedi, a lightsaber is a sword for all intents and purposes, and the purpose of a sword is to cause harm. And yet Jedi philosophy is about protecting, you know, and preserving life, and all life is sacred, all that kind of thing. So it's like, how do you bridge the gap between the two? You know, on one hand, you're supposed to be preaching that you believe in peace, but on the other hand, you're training diligently to use a sword. And it's a fair criticism if you're only looking at it at a very shallow level. But the thing with reality is it's a lot more complicated than that. It's nothing simple. Probably a good way to bridge that gap is to look at some of the historical examples of similar things that have happened, similar groups all throughout history. You know, like the samurai and the chivalric knights. You know, they were the basic inspiration for. Just do my Jack Sparrow. So they were the basic inspiration for the Jedi, you know, and it's like they were proficient, trained diligently with arms, with martial arts and warfare, but that's not what characterised them. It wasn't the only thing they'd done. They wasn't like the military. There was a lot more to it. They were also spiritual aspect of, you know, like the Crusaders and the Knights and all that sort of stuff were very, very religious. You know, Christians, and, you know, they adhere to those rituals and dogma and rules, and, you know, done all that stuff. And then the samurai was similar, you know, with the Shinto animism and Buddhism. You know, like there was that spiritual aspect that was integral to the role. And they also both had other pursuits outside of war. You know, like both knights and samurai were required to be literate. You know, they had to learn to read and write, and had to be able to read, whether it was the Buddhist writings in Japan and other historical writings or whatever else, or whether it was the Bible or other literature with the knights. So there's this intellectual side to it as well. It's not just being a brute. You know, you're balancing that with the intellectual side. And then, so there's the spiritual and the intellectual on one side, and then the martial, physical on the other side. And so it's characterised by this dual path, and which is much the same as a Jedi, right? And I mean, and it's reflected in so many other groups as well. You know, like even you know, your Viking skulls, similar kind of thing. You know, brutal warriors, but they were also into fighting and remembering the sagas and singing the songs, the Celtic warrior poets and all that kind of stuff. It's the same kind of thing, right? It's like, yes, You're learning how to be a beast on the battlefield, but you're also learning how to be a civilized member of society who's beneficial to society at large. You know, why is that? Well, I think the thing is that when you, like I said, there's that seeming contradiction between the Jedi and the lightsaber. If you was to try and take the Jedi, simplistic Jedi philosophy to its extreme, you would assume that it would be full pacifism, complete non-violence. And, you know, even in the face of violence, you wouldn't use violence, right? But that's not what the Jedi do. And I think that's because, in reality, if you tried that, as much as that's very useful, you know, in most applications, there'll always be that small percentage of people that just don't respect it. They just don't, and they will actually actively exploit it when that opportunity presents itself. So it's like, you need something. You need capable warriors that are guided by something higher, which is what the wisdom path is about. So, but they have the martial part in order so that they can actually meet the threat. You know, so it's like this balancing act. And you've really got to have that counterbalancing apparatus, because it's one thing to know how to use a sword, it's one thing to know how to wage war, but it requires wisdom to know when or how and when not to, because most of the time it's not appropriate. So it's really important that you have both of those paths in order. And the cool thing is too, is that I think, from my experience, is that they actually both inform each other as well. As you seek to improve one, it has a collateral damage effect on the other, and that they continuously improve each other. And I think that that's also worthwhile. If you're just pursuing just the one, then you're actually stunting yourself because you're not learning the other as well. And that's, look, I mean, there's heaps of other examples. And I mean, obviously, we're not, like I said before, we're not, sword fighting is not a practical skill these days. But there's still a lot to learn. You know, like what we're doing is we're, as I say, you know, like a sword fight is like a condensed experience of reality. You know, when you mess up, it hurts, you know, because these things hurt. So it's like, well, that's what you want. You want to know when you've stuffed up, and you want reality to tell you that as clearly as it can, as long as you can heal from that, which is why we don't use real lightsabers. And that way you can actually learn from there. The only reason that Tony Hawk is the best skateboarder in the world is because he fell off his skateboard more than anybody else. Like, failure is the way to success. So, you know, and the Greek philosophers, that was actually part of the thing. I don't know how many of you know this, but the original Greek philosophers, like Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, it was actually really integral. They really stressed, this is going to be complicated. Should we maybe pause it and move out of the way? Right. The original Greek philosophers, they actually really stressed the importance of physical activity alongside the philosophical practice. It's not something we usually think of. When we think of a philosopher today, we think of somebody in a tweed suit and a nice study with a leather upholstered armchair and a pipe, and all they do is think and talk. But that's not a real philosopher. That's a decoy. The real philosophers, the original philosophers, stress the importance of physical activity in conjunction with and as part of the philosophical journey. I think it's the same thing. It's like what you're doing is the physical side of it is the direct relationship with reality. You know, and not just reality itself, but you know, other people as well. Like, you know, because they were wrestling and things like that. You know, so you're learning about people, which is a big part of our reality as humans, as communal creatures. And you're learning about physics, and you're learning about your own strength, and you're getting fit, which is also really important for, you know, mastering the world, if you like. And I think that then informs the philosophy aspect. So you've got something, you're experimenting with the real thing, and then you're stepping away into the wisdom realm, the philosophy realm, and you're thinking about that. With that information that's being provided, you've got something to work with that's grounded. But if you don't have that, then it's not going to help. Like you can get lost in the clouds just thinking about stuff if it's not grounded in something real. And but having this constant back and forth by training both the dual path, then you're informing each and it's keeping your philosophy grounded, and that wisdom is also beneficial for your physical growth. So like, I think that's more in line with what we're doing. Like I said, we're not trying to be violent or anything other than the consensual violence we all do here. But it's sword fighting and Star Wars. It benefits us and our personal growth, and that's really what the Jedi way is about. It's about personal growth, and all of us have something to gain from that. We all want to be better than we are, and if you don't, then you probably need to be better than a lot better than you think. So I think that's why we love this. I think that's why we're passionate about it, even if we don't really understand why. The Samwise Gamgee said, and I think that it's worthwhile. I think that the world is a better place for people who try to improve themselves, and that's what we do by doing this. So I want to thank you all, because it would be really boring if it was just me here sword fighting by myself. And that allows me to grow, and it allows you guys to grow, and we all, like the dual path, we inform each other. We all help each other to grow, and that's why we do it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
May the force be with you.
And with you.
There you go.